Have you ever wondered why some people seem to make wise decisions in every situation, while others keep repeating the same mistakes? What if you could train yourself to become wiser starting today? So that's what we're talking about. I'm Henry, and you're watching my channel, Henry's Millions. Today is day 43. And if you remember, the last few videos were about wisdom, specifically based on the document and work of Paul Baltes, who's a very well-known psychologist in human development. And based off of his work, I put together a few videos sharing with you the science and insights behind wisdom and how you can use that science to become wiser. Today I'm going to be focusing on some very specific areas or topics within the body of work that I've been discussing. So I'm going to focus on three different things. And these are things that are actionable that you can use starting today to make yourself wiser. And they are creativity, your cognitive style, and internal reflection coupled with social intelligence. These three factors, they emerged from rigorous research as the strongest predictors of wisdom-related performance. Remember, we were talking about the Berlin wisdom paradigm. It's Paul Baltes and a colleague of his, Ursula Staudinger, back in 2000 and before. So here's what they found. So collectively, these three things I just told you about, creativity, cognitive style, and internal reflection coupled with social intelligence. These three things account for 40% of the variance in wisdom-related outcomes. Remember, they studied hundreds of participants and put them through all of these scenarios and questions and answers. And they worked out the factors that they could test, measurable, and measure to tell if somebody is wise or not, and what's the average, and so on. So there's something called the personality intelligence interface. It's where cognitive style and creativity reside. This also contributes a unique 15% predictive share, which is the largest single influence among all the tested factors for wisdom. So, and the social intelligence, it bridges wisdom's cognitive and interpersonal dimensions. And this enables a real-world application. So this is your wisdom equation, is what we're trying to put together here, okay? While 60% of your wisdom comes from life experiences that you can't control, these three pillars that we're talking about today give you direct command over 40% of your wisdom. It's the biggest slice that science says we can actively grow. So now let's elaborate on each of these factors using evidence from the research. Let's start with creativity. This is the engine of insight. So creativity in the context of wisdom is not just about artistic talent. It's the ability to generate new perspectives, to find innovative solutions, and transcend the obvious or conventional ways of thinking. Now, Baltes' research shows that creativity, especially when measured as divergent thinking and problem finding, is a strong predictor of wisdom-related performance. So creativity isn't just about coming up with solutions, it's about seeing new problems and asking better questions. That was very interesting about seeing new problems. We think about solving problems, but not finding problems. This skill called problem finding, it's a hallmark of wise thinking. In wisdom research, people who excel at wisdom tasks are often those who can reframe dilemmas. They see hidden issues, they ask better questions, not just those who can solve presented problems. So in talking about creativity, the key mechanisms are divergent thinking, cognitive flexibility, and emotion knowledge integration, okay? Divergent thinking is generating multiple solutions to open-ended life problems, like reframing a career failure as a pivot towards something more purposeful. And cognitive flexibility, remember we're talking now within creativity. So divergent thinking, now cognitive flexibility. It's shifting perspectives to resolve value conflicts, like balancing personal ambition with family needs. That's cognitive flexibility. And the emotion knowledge integration, where you manage your emotions to access deeper insights, like using grief to fuel compassion. So the support for this, the empirical support, is that creativity explains 26% of wisdom's variance. That's massive. So remember when they were conducting these studies and they were measuring participants against all of these factors, they found that creativity explains 26% of wisdom's variance. What we just discussed, replay it if you have to. And high wisdom performance showed exceptional fluency in alternative use tasks, which is brainstorming unconventional solutions to social conflicts. So how do we apply this, right? This part about creativity. So practice looking at problems from multiple angles, and don't settle for the first solution that comes to your mind. And then try to reframe your life's dilemmas. Like ask yourself, is there a different way for me to see this situation? You could also apply it by engaging in exercises that promote this divergent thinking we're talking about, like brainstorming alternative explanations or solutions to your real life challenges. You could also embrace playfulness and openness to new experiences, as these are traits that are linked to both creativity and wisdom. So something actionable from this portion about creativity is that you can try this. You can reframe a problem in your life as 10 new opportunities. I know that sounds weird. Like we never usually do this. Like you have a problem in your life, you're stressed out and you're thinking about how to solve it and you're talking to people. But what if you could just jot down 10 opportunities that are arising out of this problem? So this bridges emotion and intellect, which is the heart of wisdom, emotion and intellect. It reminds me of our earlier talks about willpower, how emotion is just so crucial to willpower. So now let's move on to the second pillar, the second point of today's discussion, right? We started with creativity. It has a huge bearing on wisdom. Now let's talk about cognitive styles. There are many cognitive styles, ways of thinking, but it turns out from the research and the studies that 2 cognitive styles rose to the top in terms of higher levels of wisdom. Let's call this like the architecture of wise judgment. And cognitive style is your habitual way of processing information and making decisions. And according to Paul Baltes, remember the human development psychologist, 2 styles are especially important for wisdom. And they are judicial thinking and progressive thinking. For judicial thinking, it's the habit of evaluating and comparing options rather than making snap judgments. So we compare options analytically, like weighing risks of a major life change without the binary right or wrong, good or bad, yes or no framing. And progressive thinking, it's having comfort with ambiguity and having a willingness to move beyond black and white thinking or rigid rules. Like, for example, adapting cultural traditions to modern ethics. So the mechanism here, when we're talking about cognitive style, is a tolerance for uncertainty, accepting incomplete information while making principled decisions. And another mechanism here is the contextual adaptation, where it's adjusting strategies to life's changing demands, like shifting career goals after an illness. And the empirical support behind this is judicial and progressive thinkers score 20% higher on wisdom tasks than those with other rigid styles, 20% higher. These styles, these two styles, judicial and progressive, they predict wisdom independently of IQ, so confirming their unique role. So how do we apply this cognitive style component of wisdom? So when faced with a dilemma, deliberately compare multiple options and consider their pros and cons. Practice tolerating uncertainty and resisting the urge to seek simple, clear-cut answers. Reflecting on your own thinking. Are you open to changing your mind with new information when new information appears? Do you seek out complexity rather than avoid it? And use self-questioning, like, this is important. What am I missing? What would someone with a different background see here? That is so useful. It's just getting out of the way our habitual thinking patterns to ask these questions. Remember how important questions are. We talked about this in previous videos. What am I missing here? What would someone with a different background see here? These are great questions to ask. So if you could take something actionable from this component, is to challenge yourself. What third option exists beyond yes or no or A or B? Use the Solomon test. If you remember King Solomon, there was a moral dilemma, like there's two women and a baby, and they didn't know, both women said the baby belongs to them and nobody else knew. So King Solomon said he's going to chop the baby in half and give each woman half of the baby. The real mother of the baby cried out and said, no, don't do it. I don't remember if she said let her have the baby or something, but that's how they found out who is the real mother of the baby. So analyzing a moral dilemma, like how can you apply it in your own life? Like, for example, work versus family, right? You got work demands, maybe you have to move, take a job elsewhere, but you have your family or partner or spouse that you don't want to leave. So how can you, that's not a binary solution. So that's a moral dilemma, and there must be creative options for that. And the third pillar here, the third point, that was the most important from my study in wisdom, wisdom-related thought and insight, and all of these studies and research in the past, was social intelligence and internal reflection. Let's call this the wisdom loop, okay? This is the third pillar. Social intelligence and internal reflection. So for social intelligence, that's the ability to understand, to navigate, and respond wisely to social situations. Like, for example, giving sound advice, understanding others' perspectives, and handling interpersonal conflicts. The mechanisms here are, there's three of them. There's perspective taking. It's like seeing situations through other people's eyes, mediating conflicts by considering competing values. There's also competitive dialogue, like testing insights through discourse, like discussing a dilemma you have with a mentor. And then empathic communication, like conveying advice in a culturally resonant way. Using proverbs, for example. We talked about that in the last video. And the empirical support from this, from the studies, was that wisdom gains jumped nearly 20% when social discourse is followed by reflection. And older adults showed greater gains from social collaboration. Now onto the internal reflection part of this third pillar, this third point, this self-collaboration. So that's the internal reflection. That's structured self-dialogue to process and integrate social experiences. And the mechanisms here are like third-person reflection, journaling, for example, as a detached observer. Why might they feel this way? And journal about that, or at least reflect on that. That increases wise reasoning by 30% and reduces bias. There's the dialectical thinking. I know I'm introducing a whole lot of concepts here for you, but I think this is very helpful, and it's useful if you want to just replay this video or jot down some notes. Dialectical thinking here is managing value conflicts by embracing complexity. So you can ask, How might both sides be partially right? It's dialectical thinking. So self-reflection after social interaction, it hardens insights into wisdom. And that was covered in a previous video. So there's synergy here, right? And they call this synergy, this interplay of these components, the interactive mind approach. So how this works is you reflect alone on the dilemma, the problem or challenge you have. You can journal in the third person, you can just reflect on it. Discuss insights with others, right? We all need a support group. We all need friends and family and wise people, mentors, others that we can count on, that we can call on and discuss issues with. Seek diverse perspectives. And then afterwards, reflect individually to synthesize this learning. The impact in the studies, this sequence boosted wisdom by 20 to 30% compared to isolated efforts. And older adults gain the most, leveraging life experience in the reflection phase. Remember, this doesn't make you wiser forever by 20 to 30%, but in that instance, in those circumstances where you do apply it. Now, over time, if you're continually applying what we're discussing here, yes, you're going to be wiser in the long run. So an additional word on how we apply these things, okay? Because I really want to drill this down. I want you to benefit from this work in this video. For social intelligence, practice perspective taking. See situations through other people's eyes, especially when you disagree. And engage in meaningful conversations where you listen deeply and you seek to understand others before responding. This is great in the workplace. It's great for emotional intelligence. And work with others, collaborate on problem solving. And also seek feedback and learn from these social interactions where you're integrating lessons from both positive and challenging relationships. And in terms of internal reflection, after an important conversation or a problem solving situation, take time alone to think about your key takeaways. And we talked about a third person reflection, like asking why might they feel this way? You want to gain some psychological distance. You want to reduce your own bias, and so you can incorporate these insights. So just to recap, why these three pillars, these domains, these points, why do they matter the most? Because wisdom emerges from the orchestration of these three factors, right? Creativity generates innovative solutions. Your cognitive style structures evaluation and adaptation. And then what I call the collaborative wisdom, which is these the last two, the social intelligence and internal reflection. Let's call that collaborative wisdom. That ensures solutions are ethically grounded, they're contextually effective, and that insights are integrated or incorporated through reflection. So Paul Baltes, this triad, the definition of wisdom, he defined it as the orchestration of mind and virtue toward excellence. That's how he defined it, right? When these three elements align, individuals achieve what this Berlin paradigm that I spoke about in earlier videos identifies as expertise in the fundamental pragmatics of life, navigating uncertainty, relativizing values, and optimizing your well-being and the well-being of those around you. So train these three factors, three elements simultaneously, right? Using creative exercises, practice judicial thinking, and engage in dialogue-driven reflection. So that's concludes our talk for today. And I'm going to be continuing to uncover additional studies and research on wisdom and bringing those to your attention. Please like and subscribe. It helps my channel. And if you find usefulness in this content, share it with someone that could also benefit. Thanks a lot. Every time.